Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I am so excited to bring on somebody. I think it's a really good topic. We are recording this just a skosh early for you because it's all things taxes. So I am so excited to bring back on the podcast. If you have not listened to our last one about R&D credits and ways that you guys can save, I'm a big proponent of let's get smart with the game of taxes. And if we know more rules of the game, we can play the game smarter. And so I'm super excited to bring back Derick with Big Life Financial. Derick, how are you today?
I'm awesome. How about you, Kiera?
Super good. Rumor has it you are prepping for a wedding and just moved into a new house. Like all big things in your life since I last talked to you. Congratulations on all that. That's fun.
It has been a super eventful 6 months, and it isn't slowing down anytime soon. So we're doing our best to enjoy the ride.
Hey, that's good. That's a really good way to view life. And I think it's funny because we all got this massive stop in our worlds in 2020. And now I feel like 2021 was ramping up and 2022 has been just equally as fast. It's very odd to see how quickly we went even faster than what we were doing pre-2020. You get that slowdown, get that burst of energy, and then it just feels like it has not slowed down since things opened back up. But that's at least been my perspective. I don't know about for you.
Yeah, we definitely, because of the wedding in the house, it's felt really fast. Socially, things are coming back up to speed, but it's taking some time. We've been a little afraid to book travel just because things kept changing. We were like, I don't know, but now we're fully on board with that. So I have a feeling the slingshot is coming.
I agree. Maybe it's because we all took a year off and we're trying to catch up from that year. So, but I'll tell you, those airports are busy. Same. I've wanted to travel. I've got one more continent left. Listeners know I've got 6 of the 7. Number 7's actually Asia. Most people think it'd be Antarctica. Nope. Did that right pre-COVID. So I've got this really big itch this year to just get that last continent in, but I'm terrified to book the travel. And then there's global distress right now. There's just so many pieces. So it's just an interesting time of life, but spinning to taxes, another interesting time of life. People either are prepared and cool, know my tax bill, planned, prepared, saved, or I know the rules of the game. I found ways to mitigate, or they're freaking out and praying that the calendar will slow down because they do not want to see that April 15th show up. So Derick, kind of, for those who don't know you, guys, please go check out his other podcast, super beneficial. I know we've had quite a few clients reach out to you guys and see lots of discounts and reimbursements back off of the taxes. So definitely go check those out. But Derick, kind of just fill us in on what Big Life Financial is and what you guys do.
Perfect. Well, we do, the really short answer is we help people to keep more of the money that you make and be smarter with it, right? Now that can mean a lot of things. And we do primarily work with dentists and business owners because there are a ton of things you guys can do tax-wise that a lot of people can't. The biggest thing is just tax savings. And then once you save the tax dollars, what do I do with that extra money? Instead of buying yourself a lime green Lambo, you could put that money where it will continue to grow, and then you have bigger tax problems next year. But I promise those are the kind of tax problems you want. And here's what's really cool. Most people don't even know what's out there, what's available, sort of the cliche, you don't even know what you don't even know. If you're just talking to a CPA, 99% of the time, you're getting a very small piece of the pie. And so we really help to fill in the big picture because your CPA, even if you have a really super sharp, amazing CPA, and funny enough, statistically, 70% of people think they're overpaying taxes. So they don't always think super highly of their CPA, even though they're usually really smart, hardworking people. But they only do a small piece of it, right? It'd be like someone coming to you and saying, hey, can you take care of my dog. You're like, well, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a vet.
Right.
CPAs are tax professionals, but they don't do the entire world of taxes. They help you to record taxes. They can help you to pay yourself properly. They can help you with a few write-offs and making sure that's done right. What they don't do, and this is the thing that really applies to dentists, is they don't help you create tax write-offs. Their version of creating that is go buy a new piece of equipment, go buy a new building, go buy something. So spend $1 to save 30, 40, 50 cents, depending on where you're at and how much you make. But that never makes sense, especially if you're buying it. I literally talked to a dentist at an event recently, and he's like, I went and bought a new car, but I don't need a car.
Right.
So he spent $50,000 to maybe save 15 or 20 in taxes. That's not good math. I mean, if you need a car, it works. But if you don't need a car, not good math. So we really help people to see the rest. Like, how do you create tax strategy? How do you use entity structuring or pay yourself differently or investments or other types of things to create those? So that's really what differentiates us from what's out there, because a lot of the investing guys are just like, put your money over here for retirement. You can get to it when you're 59 and a half, but between now and then it's gone. And well, you won't actually save taxes, you'll pay them later. And that's kind of their strategy. So it's like, fund your 401k, we'll see you in retirement.
Right.
Honestly, that works okay. But for people like dentists, there's just so much more you can do. And it's really actually not very tax efficient, in my opinion. There's just a much better way to do it. It's just most wealth advisors, their typical client, and this is the same for CPAs, your typical client makes $75,000 to $125,000 a year, doesn't pay near the taxes you do, doesn't have near the investment opportunities you do, doesn't have any control over their write-offs and stuff because they're a W-2. So they're just a different client than you are. And that's why if you aren't getting proactive advice from them, it's because they don't usually do that.
Absolutely. And I think it's just like, Derick, I'm so excited you're here because I feel like this is becoming my obsession this year, guys. I just decided this year I really wanted to focus on wealth. That's actually the word that came to me for 2022, and wealth in my health and wealth in my finances. And so I've just really taken a massive deep dive into it. I attended a finance event and it was, I felt like an idiot. I'm not going to lie. I did not know what the heck I was talking about. So I sat there for 5 days. The net wealth of the people in this room, like we were learning from Paul Tudor Jones and Ray Dalio, and there were so many people that, again, I had never even heard of. So the combined net wealth of the people speaking to us was $30 billion, which is a lot of money. And I sat there and I would leave with a headache. I wanted to cry. I felt like I was so dumb. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I should know more because I'm a business owner, and why do I not understand half of this stuff? And then I realized, hold on, this is all new. This isn't my zone of genius. I mean, I am a really good consultant and I know how to grow dental practices and I know how to help people within that zone. That's where I freaking flourish. That's why we have the dental A team. That's why a lot of our people listening are clients that have seen that success and those results. But I'm not an expert when it comes to wealth. And so I think a lot of dentists listening are very similar. You're fantastic at dentistry. You are an expert at dentistry. But I do believe that it's our moral obligation to become educated and then execute. And so that's why, Derick, I'm so excited. Like, okay, guys, I'm pulling back out my notebook. Derick's here to talk taxes. And I really feel like it's gather information, but don't gather so much information that you never jump into the game. And so, it's funny. I have a cute little quote thing that changes every day. Thanks to Tiffany. She gave it to me for Christmas. And today it says, the only way to get rid of the fear of doing something is to go out and do it. And so I feel like that's how it is with taxes. I'm like, I can sit here all day long and keep paying taxes in the traditional manner, or I can actually like roll up my sleeves, jump into this, feel like an idiot sitting in a room of people who are billionaires literally, and be like, okay, so I don't know anything you're talking about, but I'm going to start to immerse myself in it more and more and more, learn, educate myself and then make smarter decisions. So, Derick, I'm going to let you just kind of free rift on this of whatever you feel would be pertinent because honestly, I'm like, okay, I can chime in on this a little bit, but this is really me sitting back as a student learning as well of that diversification. And what I will say, the only thing that I will tell people is the thing I've learned the most this year is diversification. The most wealthiest people in the entire world are diversified. And I truly believe today is March 30th, 2022. So for my posterity that listens to this in 20 years, because I'm sure that'll happen,
Sure.
as of today, I believe that the traditional model of having a 401k waiting until retirement is obsolete. I do not think people sit here and want to stash cash away until they retire. I just don't think that that's relevant anymore. For some people, it might be depending upon where you are in your career. But I feel like for the bulk of people, that's just the traditional model. But I don't believe that it is the most effective model depending upon what your life goals are. So those are my 2 cents. Derick, you rift on whatever you want to rift. The stage is yours, and I cannot wait to be a student today and just glean knowledge from you.
Yeah. So let me start off, Kiera, by just dispelling something you just said. So you said 401k, traditional model. Truth is, that's not traditional. The 401k was introduced in 1978, right? And basically, it was created by the people on Wall Street wanting to figure out how do we get mainstream America to invest with us passively, essentially, right? And they were like, if we can just create an on-ramp for Main Street America, middle America's money to come to us, and we get paid to manage it. Whether it goes up or down, we just get a fee on all of it. So the more money we get, the better we get, not based on results, just based on assets under management is what it's called. That's really where the 401k came from. And they said, well, if we can create this in a way where the employer matches what the employee puts in, the employee is incentivized to do this, and the employer hopefully gets some retention out of their employees, right? Makes this benefit. And so there were some good intentions behind it, but literally, if you go out and look around, the guy who invented the 401k wishes he didn't. Like he's on tape saying that because it wasn't the intention of that. Long story short, prior to that, people mostly invested in, people had pensions with their work, people had a home, and people had whole life insurance, right? Those were kind of the 3 things, because insurance is kind of similar to a pension in the sense that it always goes up and it's safe and take care of your family and all of that. But that, if we're talking about traditional, was the traditional thing. IRAs, 401ks, all of that were ways to get money out of middle America's pocket and into Wall Street's pocket. So I'm not saying there was a bunch of terrible intentions, except for, of course, people want to make money, so they find ways to do that. But just so you know, that model is hasn't been around that long, 40 or 50
Interesting.
years.
See, again,
Yeah.
I'm learning every time. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. Like back to Chinese school. Like I don't even speak Chinese, but I'm trying to learn it. Like that's literally what I feel like it's with taxes and all this wealth. But again, I think that that's why so many people don't get into it because they're like, it's too hard. It's not for me. I'm just going to do what my CPA tells me to do. And I feel like stop having lazy thinking, push yourself, go hard. Like, even if you're a team member, like this is not just for dentists. Guys, I'm not a dentist. I'm not a doctor. Like this is for people who, for me, I just think about, I have dollars that come to me from my job. And I can either spend that dollar and give it one job, or I can make that dollar have multiple jobs that come back to me so I don't have to always work for that dollar to come back to me. That is literally my mindset that I think about, and how to do it has become a puzzle and a riddle. So tell us more, Derick. I'm excited.
Okay, so I'm going to do this in layers. So let me just tell you the super simple thing that people need to realize. And this is why we focus on the front end so much on taxes, is the whole world's out there trying to figure out how to get that extra 0.5% or 1% so that their fund, their investment, their whatever, can do a little bit better than the rest of the guys, and they can say, come with us, we do better.
Sure.
There's the whole world's competing in that arena, and it's pretty optimized, right? Smartest people in the world. Here's what actually makes a difference. The difference between getting like 6% and 7 or 7.5% on your money over time, like matters, but not a huge amount, like a small amount. What actually matters is savings rate. How much are you putting into money, into places that it can grow? Now, here's where tax savings comes in. If we can take, and let's say you make as a dentist $500,000 a year, and you pay $150,000 to $200,000 in taxes. right? And you're going to save, let's say you're doing the traditional model, you're saving 10% of your money. So you're putting away $50,000 a year. If we could come in and from those tax dollars, from that 150,000, let's say you're paying in taxes, might be higher, but for easy math, what if we could just shave another 50 grand out of that was going to Uncle Sam, but instead comes back to you and now you can put it to work for you. We just do that every year. Just that one thing is going to double the amount of money that you have working on your snowball. Now you go out there and chase all this other stuff trying to get the extra 0.5% or 1%, or you can get really smart about taxes. Truth be told, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but in a couple of hours, you can learn the fundamentals of like, what are some of the key options that you need to understand that can easily shave 20 or 30% off your taxes every single year. And then, like I said, instead of taking that and going and buying yourself a sports car or something, if you just put that money into a place where it will always go up for you, I mean, we can accelerate that wealth curve, not double, because now the snowball is bigger, so it gets bigger even faster. You know how snowballs work that way, right?
Right.
By putting double the money in there or triple or whatever what you were going to be, we can massively accelerate the wealth curve. Now, on the wealth curve side, on the investment side, there's a billion different things you can do, but I'm just talking about like if you could just do one thing right, not try and solve all the where should I invest and doing all that. There's some basic stuff you can do that's pretty safe, but without all of that, if you just save the taxes and spend a little bit of time on that, that's going to be the biggest bang for your buck. So if you're looking for 80-20 rule, how do I get 80% better long-term growth with 20% of the effort? It's take a lot of those dollars that you're paying to Uncle Sam, let's shave those dollars off and reallocate them in a place they're going to grow for you. Makes a massive impact. A lot of you guys are really smart, could probably sit down and do a spreadsheet in about 2 minutes. I promise if you just look at the two differences, it'll blow your mind.
So how exactly do you do that, Derick? Like walk us through like, what is that how? I'm intrigued. What exactly is that how?
Okay, so there's a couple of different layers to it. So we think of it in a layered strategy. So the first layer is you work with your CPA. Hopefully they're helping you to shave taxes off. So if you're doing things like you can make sure that you're paying yourself some salary, but as much as possible in dividends, right? So salary, I think of as the money you earn for being a dentist or being an employee. So let's say that's 150,000 a year. And then you can pay yourself the rest for being the business owner, right? So the difference between salary and dividends is you don't have to pay yourself the self-employment tax. So that'll save you about 7.5% on that. So on a couple thousand, $100,000, it's an extra 20 grand a year in your pocket. You can also do things like paying your kids if you have your kids, and you got to do this right. And this isn't tax advice. Talk to your tax person to make sure this is right for you. But my hope here is to open up some questions so that you can talk to your CPA or your tax professional about this. But you can pay your kids $12,000 a year, tax free, needs to go into an account with their name on it so that it really is their money, but they can pay for their own schooling, their own clothes, their own sports, their own cheerleading, whatever, right? You can do things to save that up for college, a lot of other things, right? But if you've got 3 kids, that's 36 grand a year that you're not paying 40% on, you're paying 0 on, right? So that might save you another, on 36 grand, what is that, about 15 grand? You're not going to pay any taxes on that money. You can do the Augusta rule or the Augusta loophole that people talk about, where you can rent your home out up to 14 days a year. Nobody wants to rent it out to their to strangers, but you can rent it to your business if you're using it for business purposes like retreats, corporate meetings, holiday parties, all of these things that normally you'd have to go get a hotel or an event center or something else for. You can rent your home out for that for an equivalent price. So, you know, you could probably get $10,000 to $20,000 there from the business into your personal income without having to pay taxes on it. So those are like things your CPA should be talking to you about. If they're not, you should ask them. But honestly, if they're not, you might need a better CPA, if I'm honest with you. Okay, so that's like the really, really basic stuff. And most people have heard that stuff, but if I didn't cover it, you know, it's important. Over and above that, that's we probably want to look at, and there's a bunch of other things, home office and childcare, and you can find ways to write off a lot of stuff, right? But over and above that, how do we start creating these things? So once you've done all that, we end up with what's called your adjusted gross income, your AGI, right? And that's going to be what you're probably going to get taxed on, less your standardized deduction, right, that you get, that they've kind of simplified. What we really want to do is pull that AGI down. So there are a couple of ways to do that. And just so you know, this is an investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. I have a couple that we work with who do this kind of work, but just I'm going to speak in generalities here conceptually. So what you can do is you can go out and you can do things like we have some tax advantaged life insurance policies where through using a C corporation, you can have the C corporation pay for an insurance policy for you as a retirement benefit. But now you get to write off, the C corp gets to write off 100%. You have to pay taxes on about 50%. So about 50% of the dollars that go in there based on your age will go into the insurance policy tax-free. You pay tax on half, and then it grows tax-free the rest of your life. It's the only thing I've seen where you can save money on the way in and not pay taxes on the way out. So super cool way. You could just set that up and you can shave 50% off the taxes for that money right away. There are also tax advantaged investments where you can put money into an investment and you can either get a tax credit, like there's some solar energy and some other stuff out there, or you can get a tax write-off for investing those dollars. And these are usually things that the government wants to incentivize you to put money into. If you don't know this, the way the government funds a lot of stuff that they don't have the money for is they give you tax breaks and they let the private sector fund all those things. They're like, hey, we want to support green energy or infrastructure. Let's just give people tax breaks for investing in that. And then all the dollars go there to save the taxes.
Right.
And it funds, the public funds the government's kind of wishes, if you will. So, and these things change over time. You may have heard of opportunity zones, and there's a bunch of oil and gas stuff, and there's all kinds of different things. Energy is a big one right now. There's different things that change, and you want to make sure that you understand what you're doing with all of that. And that's why you work with advisors. But a lot of those you put in $1 and you can write off 50%, 75%, 90%. So if you put $100,000 in there, like I did one of these last year, you put $100,000 in there, you get let's say a 90% write-off. If you're in the 40% tax bracket, you just saved yourself like 36 grand in taxes, right? That you would have paid to Uncle Sam, and now it gets to earn for you inside of an investment. Now, taxes aren't the reason to do an investment, but they can certainly make an investment feel safer and really help. So, you want to make sure, once again, it's the right investment for you. But these opportunities are out there. The difference is that extra 36 grand that's in your bank account every single year really starts to add up to a lot more money you can, once again, reallocate and accelerate that wealth curve for yourself. And then what the idea of those is, when you do those types of investments and those types of insurance and stuff, it pulls your AGI down. So let's say you make $1 million a year, and we can pull that down, and we can save you $300,000 of taxable income. It's not $300,000 in taxes, but $300,000 you won't pay tax on.
Sure.
So now you're at 700. Then we can come over and we can do these leverage donation strategies. And the reason we would do these after we do the other things is how much you can put into a donation strategy. You can only donate up to 50% of your adjusted gross income. So if your adjusted gross income is now 700, you can do a donation strategy to get yourself down to 350,000, right? You can cut 700 in half. Now, you have to donate some money, but a lot of these things, you put $1 into them and you can get tax breaks of $4 or $5 or $6. Seems to be kind of the range, right? And there's ways to do this with land and with art and with medical supplies. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff where you can do it, but we've got access to a handful of those. But essentially, all of a sudden, you just took your income from 700 down to 350. Now, you donated money instead of paying taxes, but what we find is the equivalent is about half. So a lot of times, like if you're getting a $5 donation for every dollar you put in, it's kind of like paying 20% in taxes, right? You're paying 20% and it's getting donated. So you get to put the money towards something you believe in. But at that point, if you're in a 40% tax bracket, we just cut that in half. So that 350,000, you're paying a lot less taxes. And now you're down at like a $350,000 income level. What's interesting is taxes really only get super expensive about $330,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you go from 24% to 32%. So if you're only paying 32% on like 30,000, that's a lot better than like 700,000, right?
Hey, Dental Team listeners. I am so jazzed to invite you guys to Dental Team's virtual team summit. That's right, guys. April 22nd through the 23rd, we are doing a virtual team summit. If you missed it last year, you missed out. Guys, we send you guys team swag boxes. We have your entire team involved all day with us Friday. They get CE. And then Saturday this year, we're doing all things leadership. This year is all about optimization and execution. So guys, increasing your case acceptance, improving your schedule, also helping your hygiene team ramp up even though we've lost team members and it's been hard with COVID. So guys, if you're ready to optimize and you're ready to execute, take massive action today and join us at Dental Team's virtual summit, April 22nd through 23rd. Head on over right now, guys. Get your tickets today. Don't wait. We made it ridiculously cheap so you and your entire team can get the CE and optimize this year. Head on over to thedentalteam.com and I will see you April 22nd and 23rd. And for those of you who don't know, because I'm sure team members might not know this, I didn't realize that you don't get taxed the same percentage on all your money. So it's a tier. It's a tier structured. So I have a team member who just started making more and they're like, Kiera, I paid so much in taxes. And I'm like, well, look at what you're making now, because we don't realize, before I owned a business, I didn't realize that not all of my money that I was making was taxed at a certain percentage. So guys, you can, like, this is a fun little exercise. Go Google up the tax percentages. So it's like for this amount, and it's broken into tiers, and it doesn't mean, so let's say, like you said, that 350, not all of that 350 is being taxed at that higher percentage. It's the amount. So like in that tier, so let's say it's 300. I don't actually know the amount. Derick would probably do better than I am right now. Whatever that, so like, let's say it's from 300 to 350 is a 32%. Only that 50,000 is being taxed at the 32%. The 300 below that is taxed in the increments it is. So each portion of your money is taxed at certain percentages. So when people say it's a 40% tax break, well, they're estimating it's because the bulk of your money is in that 40%. It doesn't mean all of your money's in the 40%, but the big chunk of it is, and that's what we're trying to get down to that lesser amount, which is why we're trying to bring that money down to 350. I literally did not understand that this was a thing. I just thought like, oh, once I break a certain amount, all of my money is taxed at that higher amount, and that's not accurate. So your tax bill, I mean, if you plan that way, cool, you're going to be surprised that you won't owe as much. But at the same time, and that's why a lot of CPAs for higher earners will maybe put you at, say, let's estimate 35, let's estimate 37, let's estimate 42% or 40% on your entire profit and like what you're taking home if you're an S Corp, rather than it being at, say, 40% for all of it. So it's going to be a higher estimate. You're going to be putting away more for taxes, with the hope and the intent that based on what your profit margin is at the end of the year, they've overestimated taxes, not underestimated. Did I explain that well? Like, that's how I understand it, Derick. So please clear up anything that I may have misspoke on, since this is not my zone, but trying to like help people understand that as you make more money, not all of it's taxed at a higher bracket. It's just that portion in that tier that will be taxed at that amount.
Right. You're 100% right, Kiera, in the sense that like the first 10,000 you're only taxed 10%, and the next, so I'm going to speak in terms of married people, right, up to like 80,000 you're at like 12%, and then from 80 up to like 160 it's like 22, and then 160 to 330, my numbers might be a little off here, but you're at 24. But it's only those dollars, right? So part of the reason we don't try and bring your taxes all the way down to zero is like the last $90,000 or $80,000, like you're paying almost no taxes. You're paying like 10 and 12% on that. So why go through all the rigmarole? And honestly, like if we're putting you in a, when we're doing the donations, if you're at a 20% tax bracket, it would not make sense. You'd literally go negative to do those donations if you're only saving 12%, but you're paying 20, if that makes sense. So it's important to understand what's going on, and that's why having a tax pro in your corner really matters. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do, the magic number, if you don't know, is I would say try to get down to pretty close to $330,000. If you can get down to 300, we do duck under another guideline, which is something called 199A,
Mm-hmm.
where some of your qualified business income will be taxed differently. It's not the end of the world, but if you're really close to 315, which is where that guideline is, see if you can duck under it, do a little extra donation, buy a little extra equipment, prepay some bills for the year. Just so you know, prepaying credit cards does not actually create additional tax
Correct.
write-offs. I had someone do that. They were like, no, I paid all my credit cards. I get more write-offs. I'm like, no, you
No,
already
because
spent the
you
money and
counted
got the
that
write-offs.
money.
But they,
That's true. It's not.
but there's a lot of half truths out there, right? That appear to be right. Like I paid that toward expenses, but you got to write off those expenses earlier because you actually spent the money earlier.
Exactly.
Now you're
Yes.
just paying off the debt.
Totally.
So yeah, so there's a lot of that stuff out there, but really it's a layered approach, right? How do we shave money off the top? How do we shave money off the AGI to get you down where you want to go? And so here's the key sort of time frame. I think you need to talk to your CPA around August 1st. Something needs to go off like a little bell, like Pavlov's dogs, right? Oh, my mouth's watering. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
I need to talk to my CPA, see how my year is shaping up. Because if you call them in December, I promise you, for what we're talking about, it's way too late.
Agreed.
Everything's already sold out. There's not going to be enough time. So August 1st, you're going to think of it so that by the August 15th or August 30th, you're actually meeting with them. You're 3/4 of the way through the year. So you kind of know, okay, here's about where we're going to end up income wise. So we want to shave that down. What do we need to do to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for dentists, because of the consistency of income with a lot of dentists, we know, you know what, every single year I'm between 500 and 600 or 300 and 400 or whatever, you have a pretty good idea. We can set up what are called multi-year strategies. So like the insurance thing I talked about, you pay into it for 5 years. So we just know if I'm always going to pay $200,000 in taxes and I know that I want to shave, pay sort of only half of that, we'll put $75,000 a year in for the next 5 years. That's just on autopilot. So we know that's getting cut off the top. Or some of these donation strategies are multi-year strategies where it takes a minute for them to kick in. So it's like, okay, we're going to start setting ourselves up for these really good tax breaks down the road by contributing money this year. But now we've got things and we're thinking, just like with your business, if you just thought January to December, you're very limited in your thinking. Whereas
Sure.
if you're like, okay, over the next 5 years, we're going to grow our team, we're going to get the equipment, we're going to get a new building. Same thing with taxes, right? The other thing you mentioned, diversification. So with taxes, nobody ever talks about this. I believe in the idea of diversifying your tax strategy so that if the government comes in and says, hey, we want to close this loophole or we don't want to let you do that anymore, you're not out of luck, right? You've got, we're using 3 or 4 techniques to shave that off. So maybe 20% of my tax savings is no longer available,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't just lose everything, right? Like all those breaks. Or if you ever get audited and for some reason something didn't stand up, that isn't all your cards in that basket.
Right.
I get that sometimes it can feel a little simpler to just do one thing and wipe the whole thing out. But ultimately, just like with investments, like we don't want to set ourselves up to where any single point of failure can sink the whole ship.
Sure.
Right? That's your business, that's your taxes, that's your investments, all of that. We don't want everything to hinge on just one thing if we have a choice, right?
Totally agree. And I think that that's something where a lot of the things Derick's talking about are maybe for our doctors who have been in practice for a while that are, I do not, I remember my CPA gave me some really good advice. He said, Kiera, the older you get and the more things that you purchase, the less you're going to need money. And I always thought that was like a weird statement. But I will say, for like when I was younger, I was hustling and I was trying to make money to buy this and to buy that because I didn't have it. But as I'm getting older, granted I don't have kids, so we'll see what that throws into my life. But there's less things that I necessarily want. There's always things, guys, like Amazon's my kryptonite, so it's fine. But the reality is like big items. It's not like we're buying houses. We're not buying cars. We're not buying boats. Like those things have come. And so then this is where this makes a lot of sense, like those donations, because it's like we've got extra cash I either can pay it to Uncle Sam or I can invest it into a place or donate it to a place that's going to give me a benefit. So I really feel like it's smart, even if you're not at this level, one, to come up with a tax strategy. So I don't care what level you're at. I don't care who you are. I would get a tax and an investment strategy. I don't care if you're investing $10 a month. Do something, because I think it's the principle and the discipline of actually, one, researching and learning in a zone that doesn't feel as comfortable, and two, making action. I don't care if you lose those $10 in the stock market. I'd rather you put $10 in and figure out how the game works rather than sitting on the sideline for the rest of your life and never experiencing any of these other avenues that will help you ultimately grow in your wealth long term. If you're in that higher tier, the things that Derick, you're talking about, all these different strategies, these are strategies. That's why it's called tax strategy. It's not like tax plan, it's strategy. And there is no, like in chess, I don't even know how many ways you can win chess. Like if you look it up, it's like so many different conglomerations of different ideas of how you can win the game of chess. I feel like it's similar to taxes. And I want to just kind of wrap this with a quote. Tony Robbins, everybody knows I love Tony. He's like my man. But he has a quote that I feel really ties into this. And he said, people who succeed at the highest level are not lucky. They are doing something differently than everyone else. And that's really what I feel like this is about, is what are you doing that's different than everyone else? Where are you investing your efforts? What are you researching? And then what are you actually implementing? Because execution trumps knowledge every single day of the year. And so are you actually executing, or are you just gathering knowledge and sitting on the sideline but never actually playing the game? I can sit there and be a critic of a baseball game, but until I actually play the game, I don't really know what it's like to be in the game. You can sit there and critic all day long. So it's a lot of these pieces. So Derick, I think you gave so many great ideas on taxes, guys. Like it's such like a mind-boggling world. But I feel like it's like, instead of trying to master the whole game, realize that this is a lifelong process. And the more educated we get, the more we work with smart people like you, Derick, and start to educate ourselves on life insurance and donations and reducing and shaving, or even just today, guys, like number one, just save at least a little bit of your paycheck beyond what you're making. Like, let's not spend all of it. Let's start getting ourselves in that habit of saving, so we start to build that rainy day fund. There is a level for every listener here. You don't have to be the top tier. You don't have to be the bottom tier. Everybody can improve in some way. So Derick, I'm just curious, like last wrap up thoughts, any other things you want people to know? Obviously I want them to know how to get in touch with you, but before there, any last like looping bows that you'd like to add on to this before we say goodbye today?
You know, just to kind of wrap it up, what you said there, systematic savings is number one, right? If you never save, like everybody wants to invest, but if you never save, you don't ever have enough money to invest. Sounds silly, but like savings isn't sexy, right? Especially right now when things are a little bit inflationary. People are like, you're losing money on the money that you're building up in your bank account. But here's the thing, if you never build it up in your bank account, you can't put it somewhere where it can earn, right?
Amen.
So systematic savings, not just when you feel like it, but a system automatically. Tax efficiency, super, super important. And then when you get into the investing world and everything, I honestly think working with people that you trust, like people that won't just sell you the only thing they have. They'll talk to you about other things. They'll truly be an advisor to you. The people who are playing at the highest levels, you know, they don't have to sell you something every single day. They know that the best thing they can do is be really valuable to you. We really focus on that. We do a ton of stuff that we make zero money on. In fact, half the stuff I just told you about, I wouldn't make a penny on it, but I know if I take good care of you, we're going to work together long term, right? So I really want to be an asset to people. But work with people who feel like they have your best interest in mind. If they're just telling you, this is the one way, it's got to be this way, this is all you can do, you're probably with a salesperson, not an advisor. And that world can get a little bit complicated. We try to keep it simple, but there's a lot of information out there. So yeah, consistently save, be tax efficient, and then work with good people. I think those are the three key things there.
Oh, brilliant. Guys, I also like to set benchmarks. I would say a good rule of thumb, if you're wondering about savings, is like I try to go for 10%. Yes, I did grow up religious. So guys, you really can live on 10, like just take 10% off. I've done it my entire life. But then like, if you're already doing that, stretch yourself. That's always something fun for myself. I try to set a new goal every January. Like, hey, I can save this much. And also if you want to get even like 3.0 level, I start to take it off of gross, not net. That gets even more exciting. So like challenge yourselves on that systematic saving and keep saving more. It's really fun to see how much you can save and not feel like, I mean, there's a lot of Amazon mistake buys that I realized like how much money could I save if I stopped buying this junk that I'm never going to wear again. So really like if you just push yourself a skosh more, I think it's crazy how many more dollars are available with just a little bit of discipline. So I have a sign on my wall in our front room, guys. Like I stuck this sucker up there. I don't care if it looks pretty or not. And it says discipline equals freedom. And I think so much of what you've talked about today, Derick, does come from that discipline, but there is so much freedom with that discipline. So Derick, guys, just call Derick and talk to him. I really think what you do is very fascinating. It's very interesting. And it's just a diversification class for you. So I've heard Ray Dalio, guys, like he's the most ridiculously like billionaire, cajillionaire man in the world. Like, this man is the richest man. And I had an awesome opportunity to like hear him speak to a very select group of people. And what he said is he has his like all seasons funds. And so I've heard really it's like try to get 16 different diversification asset classes. And so I really think this is a one to explore with Derick. If you're looking for more of those diversification assets for you to start to have, that way you have your all seasons funds for no matter what happens in the world. And it really does create that security. So Derick, when people want to contact you, what's the best way to get in touch with you? That way they can just learn more about what you guys do and this whole like life insurance policies and all the different things that you guys do.
Well, because we love the Dental A Team, we have a page set up for people who listen to the podcast. So it's just biglifefinancial.com/DAT, either all capital or all lowercase. We set you up 2 links.
Awesome.
But you can just sign up for a free tax and financial strategy session. We'll find out a little about your situation. Do R&D credits apply? A big one right now is if you didn't apply for employee retention credits. I mean, we have tons of dentists getting $200,000 plus back on those. Even if you did PPP, even if your CPA says, oh, you didn't lose enough money because of the pandemic, there's a million ways you can qualify. And we're just finding tons of people who their CPA said they didn't qualify do. So that's a huge one. And then we'll also talk about, what's going on with you and your practice, where are you at in your career, what are you trying to accomplish? And then we can start really looking at tax efficiency to help fund it. I'm kind of jokingly calling it a government-sponsored retirement plan, right? Instead of paying the government, we're going to shave all that off and put it to work for you instead of for them. And I just think it's wonderful that they let us do that. So
that's awesome. I love it, Derick. Guys, truly, I have my husband and I chat with Derick as well. So we've definitely chatted with him about our own personal life. So guys, definitely reach out. I think it's great. And Derick, thanks for your time today. Thanks for like going in. I hope you guys like go back and listen to this podcast and take notes as if you have to teach it to someone else, because that's really how you're going to learn more. But Derick, gosh, truly thank you so much for being here and being in my life and being somebody that the Dental A Team just respects and values so much. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Loved it. Thanks, Kiera.
Of course. All right, guys, as always, go execute, guys. Don't just sit here and passively listen. Go do something that's going to make your future self even better. And with that, guys, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team Podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.